What's up, guys? Here we are back with a review today of something that I just recently purchased. So I'm going to go through some of the details of this new wireless system that Line 6 just kind of released. It's like an upgraded version of the original G10. So we're going to go through some of those details. I want to talk a little bit about the bullet points of what I'm going to do in this review and what it's for, as far as like the details of what's going on. So one of the most important things that I think to review, of course, is the tone and the latency. So we're going to go through some of that. We're also going to go through the signal strength and reliability. I've got it written down over here, so if you wonder why I keep looking over here, that's why. Battery life and how to charge it. And then, of course, innovation. Now, these are all things that I think are very important in a wireless unit. So we're going to take a look at that and go through the details. So stay tuned. I'm going to play a little bit and let you guys hear it, and you might hear some talking over it. Alright, now that you guys have heard both tones, one with the cable, one with the wireless system, I think a lot of people are going to hear the same thing, that I hear, but if you hear anything different, please leave that in the comments. I didn't find much of a difference between the two tones. I would say that they're pretty negligible. There's not a big tone difference. It's not like you're losing a huge amount of fidelity. Now, I did use an XLR that goes in directly to the deal as opposed to using a cable out of the wireless unit itself, okay? If you use the cable, it is less fidelity, so that's something to keep in mind. As far as the latency, okay, there is a noticeable amount of latency, but not anything horrible. It does work for its purpose. I don't think that it's necessarily going to cause any problems. The more you practice with it, the better you get with it, and it suddenly becomes negligible. It doesn't even have an impact on your playing. So I would say the tone difference is pretty negligible, and the latency is totally manageable. So that's what I think about that section of all this. All right, now we're going to go through some of the signal strength and reliability. Line of sight is a bit sketchy and unpredictable. The higher the surface, the better. It might need to be on a table or put on an amp to ensure max reliability. Although sometimes it just cuts out for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on there. I couldn't tell you, what that might be, other than maybe the unit itself is a bit, sketchy. It does worry me a little bit if I'm going to play live and people are going to be walking in front of me and, like moving around, and I don't know how much that's going to impact. I'll have to take it to a practice and see if people are an issue of walking in front of it, or if it's just like if there's a big, like all inanimate object or a wall or something. I did take it from my upstairs to my downstairs, and it cut out, but you could hear also latency between what I was playing. So you'll hear that here in the video if you haven't heard it already. And that is a big issue as far as like distance. So I would definitely stick close to it, stay on the stage. I would not roam out into the crowd, because I think you're going to have a lot more issues with things like that. This is the main problem with the unit that I've found, is that it's kind of cutting out. And that's a big deal, because that's the whole reason that you would buy something like this, is because you want to be free from the amp and still maintain the integrity of everything that's going on. So I think that's a big issue. So I don't know if I'm going to return it as of yet, but it's definitely not as good as it's been advertised. So just want to point that out to everyone. Now let's talk a little bit about the battery life and how to charge it. The battery life is pretty good. It says in the manual something around 8 hours. I think 8 hours is a bit extreme. I don't think that I'll ever use it for 8 hours. So I'm not going to test the 8-hour thing, but I would say it would easily do a 3-hour show. Very simple. I spent 3 to 4 hours practicing with it. Worked fine the whole time, as long as I kind of kept it up on a high surface. So that is just something to just, make sure that you're paying attention to where it is and where you're going to be, so that there's not anything, in the way, because that line of sight issue does cause problems here. But back to the battery life. The battery does charge in multiple ways. They have USB, which is one way you can charge. You can also use the 9-volt adapter that comes with it. Now, this solves the problem of the previous ones that I saw in a lot of reviews, where that USB port was all janky and it would eventually go, and then the unit is useless. They've remedied that by going through this, so that helps a lot as far as that goes. I would say, signal strength or not signal strength, but battery life and how to charge it is all good, works great, no complaints whatsoever. All right, now we're on to the last section here. This is innovation for these little tiny wireless units. The original G10 didn't necessarily have some of these things, and I think these are good perks to have on it. I think that the cable tone is a big thing. It's got a 10-foot and a 30-foot cable tone. That mimics the tone that is added by having the longer cord or a shorter cord when you're using a cable, right? I also think that the XLRs is a really smart move. It's not really applicable to everybody, as I use a Helix, so I can plug it right into the mic input. If you've got an amplifier, probably is not taking a thing like that, so you wouldn't be able to use that in those contexts. It also comes with an adapter, which, I don't know if I have a video of that, but you'll probably see me pull it out and put it back in, so you can kind of see what the adapter does. The adapter is this little silver piece that kind of comes at a right angle. It's L-shaped, and you can use it in guitars that it didn't originally use for, or you can also use it to kind of boost the signal, supposedly, for active pickups. So if you have active pickup guitars, I use my Schecter in this, which has Seymour Duncan blockouts. That's active. Those seem to work just fine with this thing. I mean, as long as the line of sight thing is set up, you're good to go. Other than that, I don't see any issues. The biggest issue, which is a big issue, is the line of sight and signal strength issue. Now, I don't know if an antenna might solve this problem, to get you up a little higher, or if you need to like buy or build a stand that actually is 4 or 5 feet in the air, and that would probably help this a lot too. Although it does defeat the purpose of it being on your pedal board when that comes into play. So Those are some of the issues that I have. The innovation, I think it innovated pretty well. I think the signal strength thing, they could have done something better there. Of course, you can choose different channels and things like that, but it doesn't seem to be a channel issue. It definitely seems to be a line of sight issue. All right, now we're back here at the end. These are my final thoughts on what I think of this unit. If I had to give this unit a grade, this is my first wireless system, so I mean, I don't have a whole lot to compare it to other than reviews that I've seen and instances that I've heard from other people. I would say this unit is somewhere middle of the road. Probably like, if you're talking like a 5-star rating, it's probably like 2.5. Maybe 3 if you can really find the angle for it. Like I said, it sometimes still cuts out even though it's not in a place where it's been obstructed. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. It doesn't happen very often, but it still happens. And it begs the question of what's going on. It could be the angle of maybe my guitar jack, because my guitar thing, it could be like I turn around and block the signal with my guitar. I don't know what it is. But if it's something that feeble, that is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed by the Line 6 guys. And it kind of bothers me that they wouldn't have tested that, because that is a big deal. I'm not usually one to be a negative Nancy, but it is definitely a issue and it needs to be addressed to try to fix it. Other things on the wireless system, you know, like the signal and the signal choices, you know, how the jack fits, the innovation in the cords and the cables, the latency, all that stuff is fine. The biggest problem is the signal strength. The signal strength is the issue, how it's kind of feeble and how it breaks up and how you can, you know, like move around and the slightest thing that gets in front of it might obstruct it. And you don't know how big it is or where to go or whatever to do. It just does it randomly. Like, I haven't tested if I put a fucking bottle or something in between us, but that is a big issue, and I think that it needs to be addressed. Other than that, guys, I mean, that's kind of what I think of it. You know, if you have a different view, or if you know, have a review you want me to check out that might have addressed or tried to fix these issues, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, laters.